evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Isetu Mangotwa, and welcome to what promises to be a riveting account of what it takes to be a whistleblower in South Africa, both during the so-called Gupta years, but also even this is not only a feature of the Gupta years, but it's a feature even up to today, where we saw just 2 months ago, feels like quite a while ago, but it was just 2 months ago, where we had where we had the death of a senior finance official in the Gauteng Health Department, Babita Deokaran. And so you can see that this is still continuing in the so-called New Dawn. Tonight, I have the honor and the absolute pleasure of conversing with a real-life national hero who I admire and revere so much. So after reading your book, Mosilo, I said to the guys at the office, we absolutely have to have a conversation with this lady, because even in our BMF WhatsApp groups and discussions, we're always talking about this. What would you do if you were faced with a situation? Would you actually whistleblow, or would you, looking at what happens to whistleblowers in South Africa, would you stand by your convictions the way you have, Mosilo? And you find that a lot of us are admittedly quite afraid of doing that. And so, I really wanted to have this discussion with you, because I had seen this recurring discussion occurring even in our BMF circles, WhatsApp groups, meetings, etc. I mean, your strength of character and conviction and your bravery and your resilience are things I still cannot quite comprehend. And I mean, this is probably, I've read your book twice now. And it makes me quite emotional the 2 times that I've read it. It's just the chilling account of events which unfolded along your journey as the so-called Nenegate Trillian whistleblower. So in introducing Mosilo, ladies and gentlemen, I think the summary at the back of a book does a very good job of doing that. So I think I'll just read it for the benefit of people who haven't yet bought the book. And I want you all definitely to go out and buy the book. So that's what I'll do to introduce Mosilo this evening. So it says, when Mosilo Mothepu was appointed CEO of Trillian Financial Advisory, a subsidiary of Gupta-linked Trillian Capital Partners, in March 2016, the prospect of being at the helm of a Black-owned financial consultancy was electrifying for a Black woman whose twin passions were transformation and empowering women. 3 months later, suffering from depression and insomnia, she resigned with no other job lined up. In October 2016, a written statement handed to the public protector Trillian detailing Trillian's involvement in state capture was leaked to the media. Key to the disclosures were the removal of finance ministers Nhlanhla Nene and Pravin Gordhan from their posts due to the Gupta's influence. Although she was not identified by name as the source of the affidavit, details of the revelations published in the Sunday Times left no doubt in the minds of Trillian's executives that Mothepu was the Nenegate whistleblower. Despite fearing legal consequences, Mothepu decided she could not just stand by as the country burnt. Her disclosures resulted in the freezing of Trillian Associated Company Regiment's Capital's assets and a High Court order for Trillian to pay back almost 600 million to Eskom. Facing criminal charges and bankruptcy, unemployed and deemed a political risk, Mothepu experienced firsthand the loneliness of whistleblowing. The effect on her mental and physical health was devastating. Now, in Uncaptured, she recounts this troubling yet seminal chapter in her life with honesty, humility, and wry humor, in the hope that others who find themselves in a similar situation will follow in her footsteps and speak truth to power. Mosilo, the BMF extends a very warm welcome to you this evening. And we thank you most sincerely for sharing yourself with us on what is a very central and pivotal topic to a membership base such as ours. So welcome, Mosilo.
Thank you very much, and good evening. Invited by the Black Management Forum. I'm so excited to share my story. I hope it will inspire, motivate, bring laughter and some tears, because it's a roller coaster.
Oh, it's a huge roller coaster. So, Mosilo, just to give you a bit of context, the reason I felt this was so important to members of the BMF is because We're an organization that prides itself in developing and producing a BMF type manager. We always speak about a BMF type manager or a BMF type leader. And this BMF type leader is characterized by, and these are just some of the attributes that I thought were fitting for tonight. A patriotic South African who is a committed partner in nation building, possesses a selfless approach, and a high performer whose modus operandi is underpinned by discipline, creativity, courage, and integrity. And in addition to this, the BMF is underpinned by 4 values, which is respect, integrity, creativity, and ubuntu. So I feel like you're an undercover BMF type manager because you exhibit you exhibit all of these qualities. And maybe we can begin by asking you to share with us, growing up as a little girl, coming to be as university, and as you started your profession, what is it that really you think influenced this very strong value system and a sense of conviction in your values that would make you go through, what you did and actually see it through? Because honestly, not many of us would be able to do that.
Wow. Okay. I'm half Sotho and half from Lesotho. I'm the middle child of 3. My mom was an educated woman in the 70s. She has an economics degree and she's Christian. So she has always been, even in my acknowledgement, my moral compass. So that has always been the core value. Everything I did in my life, I would say, what could my mother say if she found out what I did? And if it wasn't good, I usually wouldn't do it. We were lucky enough to be in the 80s to go to Brussels. My mother was a deputy ambassador for 7 years. So ich spreche Deutsch, so I speak English and Deutsch and German and French. But during that time, it was an exciting time to see the world broadly. I mean, we traveled Europe extensively. A lot of the years, I was the only Black person. A group of, let's say there's 20 people in a class and 20 class, and then there's 10 classes. I would be the only Black. But they never made me feel like I was an outsider. I mean, I was involved in the party. I had crushes, they had crushes with me. So it was a very interesting time. But here's something interesting. When climate change started, I was very, very, we were talking about the ozone layer, and I became a vegetarian. And I insisted that I don't want any part of animal cruelty, and I insisted my mom only buy products from the Body Shop because they're not tested on animals. This was 10 years old. So, so that was me. So I became anemic. I think I was vegetarian for about 5 years. I was like, no, you have to start eating red meat. So I'm that kind of person that if I believe in a cause, I do it all the way. Then I came back to Lesotho. I did my IGCSE and became an accountant. I did want to become a chartered accountant, but I hated auditing. I thought, let me go to BITS and do corporate finance and investment on it in 2001. And I was in the banking sphere. So like my first job, I have to, we are in a Black Management Forum. My boss didn't recognize me on the first day because I changed my hairstyle.
Yeah, at Investec.
Yes, those are things that we Black women have to go through because we change our hairstyle every 6 weeks or so. So if you work in an environment, that people will just look through you and they're like, how are you? And also seeing the reception. He didn't introduce me to the team. My laptop and the email were not ready. But when white male came in about 2 months later. So I actually was bold. I introduced myself to the team because I was just in the business day the whole day.
Yeah.
And when the other Jewish gentleman came, IT was giving notice he's coming, check him out with an email address and a laptop, make sure that he's mentored. And I was thinking, my goodness, what a reception. And of course, I mean, I was I moved to ABSA National Banking as a corporate banker for the public sector. So and I always felt that of course, they pushed black professionals into the public sector because, well, I think they think that black people are more comfortable dealing with other people.
Other black people.
Yes. Plus, you would find that I am a debt capital specialist, so I'm an infrastructure financier. So you find that if a corporate had a bond program, obviously there would be a requirement to bring a BEE, like basis point capitalizations capital to have that BEE rating. But the problem, it was almost like they did a very shallow part of the presentation, and the banks will do the more technical stuff. So there was very little skills development. Hence, I was attracted to go to Regiment's Capital, which was a small boutique advisory firm in 2007. And I was the sixth employer. I mean, I remember we were I don't remember if you remember Orient at the Melrose Arch. Our offices were in a penthouse, literally. Lita, the chairman's office, was the bedroom. The other two bedrooms were boardroom, and the workspace, the lounge. So those were the humble beginnings of Regiment. They had one. They were fund managers, the sinking fund, the redemption fund for the Brokers.
Yes.
So I spent 3 years. It was an amazing 3 years. It was the first time in my career I felt that my skills were being used. Previously, I was head of international relations at the city. And I recall South Africa had just been given the rights to host a World Cup. And I remember AXA, Airport Company of South Africa, had appointed regiments to assist them in updating their capital investment program. I think it went something like from 5 billion rand to 55 billion, but then it had to be reduced to 35. And then we assisted them in putting together a funding plan. If I recall, the CEO was Monhla Tasha, who's now the chairperson of Denel, and the financial director was Priscilla Madelani, who is now the CEO of Castle, and Sarah was Petulo Hamusi, the less said about her. Okay, so now I've got load shedding.
Okay, maybe you can switch the video off.
Yes, hold on. I have load shedding, but they had said that they will put a picture of me.
Yes.
Shall I put the video off?
Yes, please, Mosilo. I think let's do that while they probably trying to put on the picture.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
So you mentioned going to Regiments, which was a Black-owned sort of boutique corporate advisory firm, and you're feeling like your skills were for the first time really utilized. I think myself and probably a lot of other Black professionals always wonder, do you stay and fight it out in white corporate, and then feel that sense of achievement that, you've made it against the odds? Or do you go to a place where you feel that you're going to be more valued, like a Black-owned firm or any company like that? And when we do that as Black professionals, I always have this conflict to say, are we then saying these white corporates with their microaggressions and cultures that don't support us, are we then saying they must just stay that way? You know, I don't know what your view is on that. I'd be interested to hear it.
I think it depends on the individual, what you want to achieve in your life, and how much and strength and patience and stamina. I mean, I always had to fight for meaningful work. I always had to only public sector. And sometimes I'll be told about a meeting the night before, as like, oh, by the way, we have a meeting with National Treasury. Please come through the night before. Here's the slide. You're doing the transformation. So I felt my skills were not being utilized. I mean, I have to say, at regiments, the 4 years I was there, I put together a funding plan with my boss, Eric Wood, which was approved by the board. We put together 5.5 billion rand for the expansion of renewal of and refurbishment of OR, Cape Town International, and it's called LAM, and now it's called King Shaka International Airport. And we put, I think, somewhere in the region of 10 billion rand of short-term facilities. And I have to say that that's a proud achievement. And I don't think I would have gotten that kind of experience had I stayed at a traditionally white firm. And I have to say, I worked hard. I was, a normal girl dating, complaining that there are no good men. Went on holidays with my girls, we were shopping. So loved my wine. I was in my 20s, used to go out on Thursday and Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Sunday, you really quickly and you go to work. It's not like that.
Yeah, no. When we still had the energy to do that.
No, I not anymore. So I did leave regiment because I wanted to have more experience with regards to non public sector entities. So I went to Transaction Capital as a senior manager for debt capital markets, and they use securitization as a way of fundraising. So SA Taxi, which is they offer a loan.
Esido, it seems we've got a bit of a network challenge yet again.
Okay.
Let me try and check. Sorry?
Has she dropped off?
Yes, she's still on the call, but the audio is not coming through at all.
Okay.
So let me just check on that, and I'll
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, it went on mute. Apologies. Okay. Yes, so it was interesting at Transaction Capital, learning a different type of instrument, and it was quite interesting because the word securitization was a swear word after the subprime market, but there were investors like Future Growth and Sanlam, and the fact that they helped marginalized Black taxi owners owning a business was transformational. And then I went to Wits to do my master's because I had a midlife crisis at at 30.
That's a very early midlife crisis.
Yeah, is early because I never had a gap year. You know, some people have gap years. I've gap full, and then I've never had any time to do anything. My master's, well, half of it, and then I realized that I was running out of funds. Now going back to KPMG, I was offered an associate director position, and in I think large infrastructure and I think energy. And I found exactly the same problem that I found in 2001, in 2015 and 16. No meaningful work. I just spent my days doing tenders and tenders and tenders. So you're like, and you see people that are, I remember my boss his name was Klaus, and he was German. And then there was a manager below me who was also German. So it was, I just couldn't believe that from my experience of working in 2002, and now it's 2015, 16, the environment has not changed. So I was invited to rejoin Regiment's Capital. He called me out of the blue saying, let's have coffee. Can we afford you? We are working with McKinsey. We've grown from 50 people when I left them in 2010 to 250. We're working with McKinsey. We've got the blue chip public sector, Denel, Eskom, Transnet, SAA, SA Express, and they were working on the Free State and the Northwest. And we negotiated, and he gave me a high five. So I wanted 2 million. He got me down to 1,750,000, but a 500,000 rand sign-on bonus. So I
not bad.
said, okay, thank you. Bye, KPMG. So I arrived at Regiments, and truly it has transformed. You have actuaries, you have chartered accountants. They're working with McKinsey, one of the best consultancy firm in the world. And they have access to board members, they have access to ministers, they have access to executives. And Eric, I was his blue-eyed girl. I was his bitch, essentially. He took me everywhere. He told me everything about the clients. He told me everything about his wife overspending on diamonds, and she had a helicopter accident because she drove when she was tipsy on champagne. We had a very close relationship.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So do you think your decision to go back to Regiments again was more of what was bigger, the pull from Regiments or the push from KPMG?
Both.
In equal measure.
It was more of a pull from Regiments.
Okay.
Yes. I think if I was happy at KPMG, I would have declined the offer. And he said they have been working with all these state-owned companies, and they need somebody senior who will manage the Eskom team. They're waiting for the board to approve that contract. So I said, okay, that sounds great. Plus, I already knew how he worked. So I remember the HR says, no, she has to take a psychometric test and whatever. And I said, Eric, I'm not doing that, please. I worked with you for 4 years. You know what I can do. So no red flag left you clients anymore. You were struggling to get into all of them, actually. The only client you retained was was the city of Joburg. And he says, no, they have this model. They use business development partners. One was called Salim Issa, and then the other one was called Kuben Mudli. And they open the taps to the presidents, to the ministers, to the boards and executives. And if Mackenzie and Regiment got a contract, they would get a business management fee, anything from 30 to 60% of the fee. Now, KPMG had that, had that kind of model. KPMG is the gold standard in terms of ethics and integrity. But I said, okay, fine. But then, so no red flags. I used to be an early riser. So it's October, late October.
Sorry, Mosilo, at this point, the access to the ministers and the boards, etc., you just, at this point, it didn't raise red flags yet.
No, not yet. Yeah. So now I joined on the 15th of June, 2015, and October, he just tells me out of the blue that. So we used to have coffee in the morning. I used to come in at 7:30. And then he was so excited. I remember he was wearing a 3-piece suit, and he had this grin like the cat that ate all the cream. And his demeanor is very, very grumpy and anxious. But that day he was so happy. He says the president is going to fire Nhlanhla and replace him with somebody more pliable. And because he's refusing to sign.
Actually said replace him with somebody more pliable.
Yes, dear, it's in the book. Yes, more pliable. Who will sign the nuclear deal? Who will also sign the SSA, Dudumweni's, that weird transaction she wanted to do, and also they had proposed certain transactions to the Transnet and Denel and Eskom. I think one of them was issuing hybrid capital, and the board was reluctant. So they wanted a minister to just ensure that gets approved. So, and then about 2 hours later, so I didn't understand the significance of this. Please also, let's go back. We knew that the Guptas flew into Waterkloof airport, and we knew that they had a relationship with the president. And I think that's where South Africa was at the time. So I did not even associate Salim Issa with the Guptas. So what happened? So he sends me a 2-pager of 12 transactions with what they wanted the new minister to approve, the value of the transactions and the fees that Trillian was going to make. I'm like, oh, okay. So I didn't know that there's anything called an executive ethics code. I just read the Financial Mail and Business thing. And so December, there's an announcement that the 3 guys have decided to divorce. So I worked in the advisory division. So they said Eric and his BEE partner were going to buy the advisory business, which was financial advisory and management consulting. And Eric promoted me and said, listen, I want you to head up, be the CEO of Trillian Financial Advisory. And I'm like, wow, okay. I remember we were sitting at Signature. It was myself, Grant Joseph, Deborah Leballo, and Eric Wood. And he said, guys, you're my A team. And now that I look at it, he called me because he knew that he was going to leave and he needed me. I think that was the plan. Yes, because the Guptas had made them an offer, which Lita and Niven refused. But you know, when a spouse wants to divorce you, they pick many fights so that you can say, you know what, this relationship is irreconcilable. So let's just call it a day. So I see his behavior, because he would overreact, and all the time he'll say, I'm leaving, I'm taking, you can give somebody else my shares. So I think him calling me back, and he called back the financial director on the same day, he knew that he's leaving. And so we agree. And I think the first red flag, Nenegate.
Yes. Let's go to that.
In the morning, so I'm an early sleeper. So remember that for 9 years. So I would never actually be up to know which minister was reshuffled. I'll just see it on the news the next day. So my partner was the ambassador of South Africa in Zimbabwe. So he calls me after midnight, and he says, "What have you finance people done?" And I'm like, "Love, what are you talking about?" He says, "The president has just fired in Tlanhlanene and replaced him with some backbencher that nobody knows." And I said to him, I already knew. Then he says he wants to probe how. And he was the former DG of the National Intelligence Agency. So he always told me never speak anything sensitive on the phone. So I was being honest. So I'm like, I can't tell you. I can't tell you.
Now he's curious and he wants to break his own rule, but you stuck to it. Mosilo, we seem to have lost you. It may be due to the fact that she's experiencing load shedding. Okay.
Free fall equity markets are it was cut.
Mosilo, we're having trouble hearing you.
Well, she's definitely still on, but it's the connection that's the problem.
Yes, Mosilo, can you try to speak so we can check if we can hear you now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So he tells me that the minister is going to have a special advisor. His name is Mohammed Bobat, who was my colleague. He was an associate alongside with me, and he would be the minister's special advisor. And he would essentially give insider information regarding tenders. So we'll get price guidance and technical specifications, so that essentially regiments now going to Trillian will get all the money. So
I think at this point I got a bit confused, because the Department of Finance wasn't really the one that was issuing out big tenders. Or National Treasury.
That's the thing. I don't know what they were thinking because they had already captured the other SOEs.
Yes.
And the only thing that Treasury does is basically dish out money.
Well, maybe that was the strategy. Yeah.
But remember, they wanted to take that office to the presidency under Malusikika. But let's continue.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh my goodness, this sounds very serious. So this is red flag number one. And I said, I don't know what I've signed up for. So Sunday, the president, he fires, he reshuffles. The weekend special goes to Copter.
Can you even say he was reshuffled? He didn't even go to the office before he was. And then what happened happened to his would-be advisors who were ready to go to the office on Monday morning?
They had to go to Cocta. They had to go to Cocta instead of National Treasury.
Oh, I'm sure they were not impressed by that at all.
Not at all. And so that was, and I said, okay, maybe naively that plan has failed because he's now at Copter, so there's not going to be anything like that. So we moved to Trillian, and the first unlawful instruction I got was to do an unsolicited bid for Transnet Engineering, which I did. And then I think a week later, he asked me to ask finance to draft an invoice of 11.4 million rand and send it to Transnet. And I said, no, a bid. How do you now invoice for that?
How do you invoice for that?
And then what happened was, because advisory had moved to Trillian Financial Advisory, and they had new shareholders. Trillian's shareholder was Salim Issa, and then it was Eric Wood under his trust, the Zara Trust. And Mackenzie had to do, so this was now the new Eskom contract. So they needed to do a what is it called? A review process, like a due diligence on the new Trillian. So they declined because Salim Issa was deemed a politically exposed person. And we were working there on the assumption that this should go okay. But the Boston, Massachusetts office declined Trillian as Mackenzie's black partner, and it was
politically exposed.
Yes. And by then, Mcebisi Jonas had already done the press conference that he was offered 600 million rand by the Guptas and 600,000 rand in a bag if he would replace Nhlanhla and work with them. And can I just tell you the coincidence of this? That weekend where he was at Saxon World, and that Monday morning when he was telling Nhlanhla about what happened at the Gupta compound, was the same time that Eric was telling me about the president going to sign in. So somebody on Sunday said yes to the 600 million. Clearly, and the 600,000 rand
upfront,
yes, exactly. Yes, clearly. So then on that day, it was my birthday, 16th of March. Debo Lebalo has now, my relationship with Eric is deteriorating. I'm insisting on corporate governance. I'm now a director. I'm saying no. The contracts still have not been seeded. So we have no contract.
Had you already moved to Trillian at this point?
Yes, we left.
Planning.
We left on the 1st of, we began on the 1st of March, 2016.
Oh, so this is like 15 days later.
Yes, and Debo tells me that the president wants to fire Pravin Gordhan because he's not signing anything. So I was like, I can't believe the treasonous act of this president. Did he understand that billions of rands were lost because of his decision? And he's at it again.
He's at it again. Unbelievable.
Yes, how desperate, how unpatriotic can one man be for three brothers that were not even born in South Africa? And then I was astonished when Eric and Mr. Anur Singh were not perturbed by the fact that there was no contract between Trillian and Eskom. And there was we did a funding plan for them, and as part of that corporate plan, and they invoiced 30 million and 600,000, and it was paid, and I just couldn't believe it. And I saw an article in the Financial Mail, Mail and Guardian, which had, and it was in partnership with Amabungani. right now, I think the media, Amabungani and other investigative journalists were now saying, no, something's wrong here. Something is wrong. So they had this web of characters who was associated to who, this one is associated to whoever. And then I remember saying, no, I can connect more dots. This guy is here. Mark Kaminsky was supposed to be Trillian's CEO of property, but he was also a chairperson of ESCOM. And I said, no, with Van Rooyen, they're missing Mo and then they're missing regiments. Yeah, so I realized this is an extension of
you could have extended that web that was in the Mail and Guardian.
Yes. And then I remember my partner was in Joburg and I said, I'm leaving. I have to leave that place. I cannot. So this is what I left on the table. I left a 2,300,000 rand salary. My sign-on contract was supposed to be the 500,000 paid. I was supposed to be there for 2 years. And if not, then I paid back. And then I also left an 800,000 rand performance bonus. That's what I left on the table.
Yeah.
And for nothing. So I got a legal opinion and my lawyer said, you need to go to the public protector or the police. And I said, no, the police are captured. I don't trust them. And I went to Egypt.
Yes.
And at this time, I was suffering from depression. I felt used. I felt violated. I believed in this dream, and it was a racketeering fraudster. Enterprise. And this man used me. I was CEO in name only. Yes. And so I want to share an extract. I have a torch.
We've learned to adapt to sharing.
Yes. So at this time, remember, just before Pravin Gordhan had to give the budget speech in February 2016, the Hawks had 27 questions for him. Remember?
Yes.
And he refused to go. And I knew this is because the president wants to fire him. Because if the minister is arrested for fraud, he has to step aside. And I said, no, this is politically motivated. For those who have my book, page 92, Gordhan had refused to appear before the Hawks to give the warning statement. And the Sunday Times of 28th of August had carried a full-page article about his brave stand under the headline, I'm prepared to die to save SA from thieves, says Gordhan. He had told his staff at Treasury that he will never back down and fight against corruption. And then I said, I realized I had a V. So I'm in Sharm el-Sheikh. I've just spent the day. This is now in Egypt, yes. This is where the children of God were wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. And I saw the plaque where the 10 commandments were made and a descendant of the burning bush. So for me, it was a spiritual awakening. And so we go back to the hotel and I'm sipping my Chardonnay. As you see, Chardonnay appears quite a bit in
features quite prominently. I want to get to that later.
I need to buy a
Chardonnay and handbags.
Exactly. So I asked the waiter as I'm seeing the sunset, what sea is this? He says, no, it's the Red Sea. And I said, no, but it's blue. So guys, I'm so disappointed. The Red Sea is blue. But I said, I parted a God that parted, I serve a God that parted the Red Sea. And so this is now on page 93. I realized I had a VIP seat to which to observe looting and corruption on a grand scale. What I had witnessed was not just undue enrichment or
undue influence.
Yes, undue enrichment or undue influence, as stated in the terms of reference of the public protector. It was blatant corruption that ran into millions of rands. Trillian was an extension of the Guptas, and I was part of that. I had the information. What should I do? So this is now the answer to your question. At first, I told myself, I told myself somebody else will do it. Somebody else will come forward with the information that will help Tulima Donsela and protect Pravin Gordhan. Who am I? I have no influence. I have no ANC credentials. I am not a minister. I'm not born into a family of wealth or influence. Like Moses asked, who am I that I should go? I thought, I am just a 1 meter 58 centimeter Black woman with 3.5 size shoes and childlike hands. Believe me, I didn't want to get involved, but I was involved. In fact, I could face jail time for what I had unwittingly been part of. I thought about that famous saying attributed to the Irish philosopher Edward Burke. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men or women to do nothing. In my case, a good woman. Am I a good woman? I asked myself. Evil was triumphing in South Africa. Patriots had to stand up against the country's destruction. It was my duty to come forward. But what if they kill me? I thought. But then, which side of history do I want to be on? Am I going to allow fear to dictate my next move? The questions went round and round in my head. Sipping my Chardonnay, perhaps emboldened by Dutch courage, the question finally resolved it for me was, what was more dignified? For my mother to lay a wreath on my casket, knowing I did the right thing, or visit me in jail, bearing tampons and contraband? A wreath or tampons? For me, it was the wreath. So integrity and making a decision doesn't mean that there's no fear. I was petrified. And I was willing to die for the sake of country.
Do you think?
And then you ask, where do I get it from? It's my spiritual belief. I believe that God gave me the conviction and the strength to do something so supernatural. And so there's nothing special about me. I always say, I'm just a vessel that God used to show people that He's still alive. So I decided to go to the public protector. So I cut my trip in Egypt short, and I was an emotional wreck. I wasn't sleeping. I was drinking more than I used to. Wasn't eating properly, and it was just the worst time in my life. And I remember crying all the way in that 9-hour flight from Cairo to Joburg, listening to my favorite Australian Christian band, Hillsong. They've gotten me through so much in life. And then I had a day of rest. I met with Tulima Donsela and told her everything. And she was such a pillar of strength and integrity. So she made me very comfortable and asked me, you're so brave. Thank you so much for coming to assist me. And we had an elegant solution that, because I feared for my safety, she would use a Sunday Times article and an Amabungani article that exposed Trillian and regiments. And then she said she'll use that as a reference to, in phase 2, investigate, so that my name is not mentioned in the report. Then I asked her, listen, this is my concern is that the fraud charges around Pravin Gordhan on the fact that the president wants to fire him. And I've scheduled to meet him tomorrow. Is he trustworthy? Because I didn't know who was a good minister and who was not a good minister. And she said, yes, he is trustworthy. And then I met his advisor, Jean Revale, in Morningside at the grill there. I remember we had 2 bottles of Merlot together. And he was telling me also his story with SARS and the Rogue Unit, and how they tried to stop Tom Moyane from deteriorating and hollowing out that institution. So in my naivety, I felt proud that, you know what, I've done something. And the report was interdicted, if you recall.
Yes.
So Trillian could not present it on her last day. It was interdicted by the president, Msebenzi Zwane and Des Van Rooyen, CCMA for construction. And I gave Bergsmans my CCMA statement, which was a combination of labor and state capture. So on that Sunday, the Sunday Times called the public protector. Yes.
Mosilo, we are losing you again.
Constitutional obligations are fulfilled. Corruption, and then they say no work. So is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, great. So the journalists call and I say, if you publish that story, you have essentially put a gun to my head.
Yes.
And they called Eric and Salim and asked for their comment. So you can just imagine the devastation that ensued. I was on the cover of the Sunday Times, the dark heart of state capture. In the reply, the Sunday Times journalists, they quote Eric saying, "I'm a liar, I'm a fraudster and a thief, and criminal charges are imminent." And but they didn't quote me. They just said I fulfilled my constitutional obligations. They didn't quote me saying, "You've just effectively put a gun to my head."
Yes.
And so I thought that was the beginning of hell. This was now October. November, I got a call from the Hawks telling me that I have to come in for a warning statement.
Oh my goodness.
Trillian has political connections, and because of the political situation, they have to expedite my case. I had
the Hawks actually admitted that to you.
Yes.
That is mine.
I have to come in for a warning statement. And I said, what are the charges? He says fraud, perjury, attempted extortion. There were 9, conspiracy, corruption, cybercrime. It was hilarious, actually, but not so hilarious, actually, because I just was like, what is going on? And during that time, I just thought the report, it came out, and I thought the Hawks and the NPA will continue, and these bad guys who stole the money would be in prison, and I'd go back to my normal life, and nothing could have been further from the truth.
And instead it was you who was being faced with charges and
I
being
was persecuted.
Being persecuted.
I was, and I had now in January 2017 a legal bill of 1,300,000 rand. And Trillian was playing the bully Stalingrad strategy. We'll fight her at every corner, every house, every room, everywhere, so that the legal bill will just mount and crush me. And they almost did. And by this time, I had stopped believing in humanity. I lost faith in humanity. And I never lost faith in God, but I was angry at him. I said, you sent me on this journey. You're supposed to protect and provide, and you have forsaken me. I have to sell my house to pay for these fees. And I believe a journalist called Jessica Behosenholt, she was in the list with Trillian's lawyers at the CCMA because the journalist applied to sit in.
Mm.
And the lawyer said, unaware that the journalists were there, to Trillian's representative, don't worry, we're going to bleed her dry. And so Jessica wrote an article in the Mail and Guardian, how to bleed a whistleblower dry. And by the grace of God, there's an organization called PLAF, Protection of Whistleblowers in Africa. It's founded by William Bardon. If you check my book, I have two people who wrote my foreword. They sponsored Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. So they just opened an office in Africa. And I was our first beneficiary. We sat down and they asked me for Bergsman's, the chairman's number. They negotiated it down to 700,000, and they paid for it. And then I fired Bergsman's for overcharging me. So at this time, psychologically, I'm just not okay. I'm unemployed, deemed a political risk. I got corporates, government departments, banks. They question my integrity. They say I'm too politically exposed. They say that they get some of their contracts from government. And if they hear that I'm part of the team, there goes their revenue. So when companies, like you just told us about your values, integrity is your ethos. It's amazing how corporate says that, but they don't walk the talk. Because I was shunned like a leper. And you will see many whistleblowers, Tamba Maseko and who said no to the Guptas, and Cynthia Stimpant, who said no to Jubilee. They're not working. And I didn't work for 2 years. I almost had to declare bankruptcy. And it was quite amazing that at Nazareth, when Cyril Ramaphosa won by 179 votes, I will always remember that number because that number saved my life. This was in December. And in January, the Hawks call me and say, we need you to assist us in charging these guys, the Trillians and the Salines. And I'm like, but I'm your suspect.
Completely changed.
But I'm your suspect. They said, no, that was a different team. And so state capture is not just about looting and stealing. It's also about using institutions to weaponize and abuse. So just by one president changing in December, January, I got a call from them.
You moved from being the suspect with 9 charges to now, or them asking you to assist them to prosecute the actual perpetrators.
Thank you. And then they said, no, their excuse, that was a different team. But my journey is about forgiveness, so I had to forgive them. So I spent a good 2 years as a professional affidavit writer. I mean, I went to Parliament. for the ESCOM inquiry. I mean, I remember more crying that 2-hour flight. Wait. I had a driver come pick me up. I arrived at Parliament and I had 4 bodyguards, 2 in front of me and 2 at the back of me. And my lawyers were behind. And I was like, what happened? I mean, what decision did I make in life that I need that's the protection? Yeah. And so I was there. The FBI also flew from America. And so I had to meet them at the Pretoria offices to tell them about the Guptas and Salim. And now we know that the Americans froze their accounts and they banned anyone doing business with them. But all of this was taking a toll. I remember Sikonathi Manjanta wrote an article about me in the Financial Mail. After Jessica also wrote an article that the Hawks and the NPA are not prosecuting me because there's no winnable case. So he wrote, he calls me and he says, listen, I'm writing about you this week. How are you doing? And I said, no, I'm not doing well. If the situation doesn't change, I'm filing for bankruptcy. I have to sell my assets and I'm all alone and isolated, no support. And my only crime was exposing corruption. And I feel like I've been punished for my integrity. South Africa has shown me its true character. And so he wrote an article. This was now April 2017. I haven't worked now since June 2016. So it's almost 2 years. And it's quite interesting how when I was at the the Parliament, the chairperson asked me, Mosilo, where are you working now? And I said, no, it's been 18 months since, unfortunately, corporate SA thinks I'm on political risk, so I'm unemployed. And I remembered Twitter, hashtag hire Mosilo, hashtag. And I'm like, you know what? I wish I can pay my bills with hashtags. But not a single person even like gave me 1 cent. No one in that 2 years that I was unemployed. They were just hashtagging. And I said, my goodness, people just, they think they're woke. Hashtag hi Mosilo. And then you sleep and you think you've made a difference. And so he says, Mosilo took a... So he says, no, listen, I'm the editor, deputy editor of Financial Mail. I'm going to write about you this week. And I said, you know what, Sikonathi, so many articles about me, nothing's changed. So he writes it. And the ending her off, we're paying her with bankruptcy. She has to sell her house. So unlike South Africans who hashtag hi Mosilo, I got a call from Rob Schutter, and he sent a board member, and they offered me a contract of 3 million rand a year.
At MTN?
At MTN Treasury. I had stopped praying and I was just angry at God. And I remember having that meeting, after that meeting, I said, okay, God, because I had exited the WhatsApp group. So I had to ask, can I re-enter this WhatsApp group? Because I've never, this is a miracle. Yeah. I mean, PLAF were a miracle, but this is also a miracle. And so I started at MTN. The work was meaningful. It was. I mean, they have many African subsidiaries. I had to do like a consolidated cash flow, something for them. So, and it was on the CFO's like KPI, so it was an important project, and they entrusted me with it. Yes. But emotional, psychological, and soul and spirit were truly broken, and I had a nervous breakdown, unfortunately, and I started twitching. I had no memory. I had I used to tremble. So I had to eat alone, because I remember even saying, even I love peas. And I remember holding my fork, and I trembled so much that all the peas would fall. And I said, the Guptas have even taken away my peas, But MTN was just fantastic. I was there for 2 years, but in the I think the 2019, out of 6 months, I was on sick leave for 4 months. I had hives. I had no immune system, and I had to see a psychiatrist. So I was diagnosed with chronic depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, chronic anxiety, and insomnia. And I had a condition called TMJ. You can Google it. When your body has a memory. So when I sleep, my teeth grind. And I used to wake up with my jaw locked. So I had to go to I went to the dentist first, and then he didn't know. I went to ENT. She found a tumor behind my ear, but it wasn't cancerous. But then my orthodontist said, no, you keep saying trauma. What trauma? So now we're at TMJ brace, and till this day, I still have my pharmacy of pills, that I'm a trauma counselor and a neurologist. But at the end of the day, I also have other miracles that happened. My bank, which made me sign an MDA, and I know I'm a spoiler alert here, but I just wanted to just rebalance the story, that my bank had asked me how they can help me, because my CV was going around and nobody wanted to help me. So the chairman and I were friends, and he says, no, let me speak to the CEO and have a meeting. What can we do for you? And I said, why don't you cancel my bond? And they did.
Oh,
so
wow.
2.5 million. So I have my title deed. And I was at MTN for 2 years, but I decided to, and then the president called as well. And he was saying, listen, I'm so happy. What you've done,
Mosilo, we please move around a bit. We've just lost you there again. We still can't hear you.
And if you need my help, I'm here. Because in Mcebisi Jonas was the chairperson, then I'll call Mcebisi. Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
you've just
Let me move. Is this better?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Is this better? Okay. Great. So it's been a roller coaster of a journey. Hello?
Hi, yes, Mosilo, we can hear you.
Me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes. So,
oh no, we can't hear you again. And you are coming to the end, and we really want to hear, your closing thoughts.
I've had, after MTN, I decided I needed hold on 1 minute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So it has been, I've experienced heaven and hell on earth. I've seen the worst of humanity. I have seen the best of humanity. Interestingly, it was strangers that were kinder to me than people that I thought were my friends and people that I thought would assist me. So I took a year off in 2020, what? The year when did COVID come?
2020, March.
Yes. So my last day at MTN was March, and I decided to heal. But on that process of healing, I decided, God, what was the point of this journey? Because everybody was looking at, oh, we've just finished a decade and we're about to enter into a new one. And I said, what was the point? He says, no, the point was to show the world the strength and resilience of the human spirit, and also my power and faithfulness. And you're going to write a book, he said, to show that. And I remember I went to the gathering that was hosted by Daily Maverick in Cape Town. And I was interviewed by Susan Comrie of Amabungani. And so I said, no, I'm going to write a book this year. And amazingly, Penguin was there. And they waited and they said, listen, we want to publish your book. And I said, oh, my goodness, when God has a plan for you, the universe conspires in your favor, right? Yes, and so I spent lockdown meeting with my ghostwriter. I had a ghostwriter, Kate Sidley. So we'd meet every Wednesday from June to October. So we were given 4 months to write my book. And 75 pages max. So we'd meet every Wednesday for 3 hours. So we used to cook salads for each other and soup. And she would record me as I spoke. And of course, it's traumatic, when you talk about something. So it was a lot of re-trauma.
Having to relive everything that happened.
And then also the next day I would have to go to my trauma counselor and just soothe my pain again. So it was a difficult writing process, and even having to edit, and the emotions would come. But we delivered 93,000 words and a day before. So now the book came out in April, and it was just an amazing reception. My facilitator was Bongani Bingwa at Exclusive Books. I remember there was a month where I was number 4 in terms of Exclusive Books best-selling books, but the first 3 were white American authors. So essentially, I was the number 1 best-selling book in South Africa. Yes. And so I was, and then I didn't enjoy my book tour because it re-traumatized me, I have to say. But on another miracle, I went to Zondo twice, and some American saw me, and he told my lawyers, I'm sending $5,000 to this woman. She's going through hell. She needs to go on holidays. So that's about 75,000 rand. So I'm like, what? So I went to the Maldives. And then I'm going to Phuket and Bali and Singapore next year for my birthday. So, it's like my life is just very weird. Angels and demons, there's a chapter called that. And it's always the angels that are strangers. And I wanted to even write him a note to thank him, and he said no. All he has to know is that I have to enjoy myself. So where am I now?
Yes.
I got a call, the irony of this. I got a call from Minister Senzo Nkunu in February this year, and he wanted me to be his advisor, special advisor. I'm like, what? The irony!
Oh my goodness. And did you accept, Mosilo?
Of course I accept, because still, corporate still doesn't want to hire me. So I accepted. We were at the Department of Public Service and Administration, and we were fighting with the unions. We were reshuffled in August. So I'm now in water and sanitation, dealing with Gati, Gianni, and Lesotho Highlands. So at least I'm an infrastructure financier. So at least, and TCTA. So
that's a space that you're comfortable in. Or your
Absolutely.
skill is being utilized, yes.
Yes. And I
what
remember,
does it feel like working for government now?
Well, we work from home and there's so much protocol. Minister, every meeting, Minister, DM Makati, DM Mashobo, special advisor. And so it's like 15 minutes of that. And then you're
protocol observed.
Yeah. So I'm just like, all protocol observed. And then I just continue. So I have two more things to say. So my story played out in the media. And it is well known, but I want to impart the wisdom and strength that I've received. I want to encourage other people to speak up, even if it's difficult. But for a drastic change, there has to be pain. All revolutions require blood, sweat, and tears. Anything worthwhile requires sacrifice. Every generation faces a crisis of some sort. It requires people who are willing to stand up. People were exiled, imprisoned, killed to end apartheid and give us democracy. Our fight was against state capture and corruption. It was not in the trenches or the streets, it was in the boardroom. At least the bulls could, at least with the bulls, you could see them coming. But when it comes to corruption, you don't know who your enemy is. There are thugs in suits hiding in plain sight. Meeting in boardrooms and offices. So I just could not sit by and allow South Africa to burn. And I knew that there was going to, remember at the beginning, I said a wreath. A wreath is something you lay on a coffin.
Yes.
So that was the sacrifice that I had to make. So my last page 200, I wrote this book to tell my story, to reveal the effects of state capture to ordinary people, and to draw attention to the role of the whistleblower and the danger and devastation we face. I also want to empower and encourage everyone who's going through what feels like an insurmountable challenge, whether it's illness, divorce, or death, or something else entirely. Know that the human spirit is resilient. My own spirit withstood betrayal, fear, and criminal charges, and near bankruptcy. There were times I prayed for death and peace, and times when I could have cracked, when I thought I would, but I didn't. I kept my faith and I made it through. I fought hard and refused to let them take my mental and physical health from me. If you have faith and you stay on your course, you will triumph. So that is my closing. So my trauma counselor,
yes,
his name is Dr. Richard Middleton. He says to me, had you known your decision was going to affect you mentally, emotionally, financially, would you do it again? And I say, Richard, I'll do it again a trillion times. South Africa. It's a trillion times. South Africa, you're worth it. And it has been an honor to serve. That was...
Yeah. I mean, I want the audience. I don't know, Mosilo, if you can see the comments, but I'm just going to go probably for another 10 minutes. We are scheduled to end at 8, but I think 8 is a bit late in the evening. So I think we'll go for another 10 minutes. I just want to ask the audience to post any questions that they have in the comments. But whilst they do that,
I can't see, so you're going to have to read them out.
Okay, let me start by reading them out. So Sulungeka Dazana says 1.58 meters of pure courage. And that's with reference to your 1.58, yes.
Yes.
That's with reference to your dynamite pictures, yes. And then Sipokazi Giorgio says, phew, it's tough being a whistleblower in South Africa. Stephen Tite, really brave of her. She's my hero. Vyokazi Ngobozi, wow, you're really one of a kind. What a courageous, God-fearing woman. Sfiso Dube, you're a powerhouse. Corporate South Africa needs more people and leaders like Mosilo. You are the epitome of what resilience is. Mtutuzeli Mboniswa, we need more sessions like these to encourage more people to stand up and be brave in resisting and exposing corruption. You're a shining example that it is possible to stand up against corruption and remain brave even when the battle takes the most out of you emotionally and physically. You are my hero and a true servant to our country. Thabo Mashongwane, wow, praise God for the courage and such a strong lady. So Mosilo, for me, whilst I'm just waiting for questions to come up in the Q&A, I think, two paragraphs that I think almost like made me break down in tears in your book. The one is on page 111, and it says, I felt like the loneliest person in South Africa. I was completely isolated. Almost 60 million people in the country, and not one person came to my defense. No one at Trillian supported me. No one at Eskom came forward to say, yes, it's true, we paid with no contract. Tebogo and I remained in touch after my resignation, but I hadn't spoken to him since August. When I told him my discoveries about Trillian's connections to the Guptas, his nonchalant reaction then made me realize that he was lost. I had called Bianca, who I thought was on my side and in the same boat, but she ghosted me. I needed someone to lean on, to cling on, but there was no one. My faith in humanity was destroyed. So yes, I drank to take the pain away. And this is where you ask, when you said earlier that you were angry at God and you're saying, you sent me and why have you forsaken me? So that's one of the parts where I was just absolutely close to tears. And then the other one was when you went to the disciplinary hearing of Tammy Gianni.
Yeah.
Yes, and when you just that you went through the questioning, I think you managed to get through that, but you said at the end of it, I couldn't breathe. My ears were ringing. I sat with Zanele and Mampho Mutsomi from MNS. May her soul rest in peace. She was murdered by her intimate partner in 2019.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I was trying to gather myself. Once I'd calmed down enough to get up, we began walking towards the lift. Next thing, I was on the floor, crying and screaming like a wounded animal. The two lawyers managed to get me to the bathroom where I lay on the tiles, weeping and praying to God to just open the earth and swallow me. They tried to comfort me, saying I'd done well, it was okay. But it wasn't about how I had performed in that room. It was that I couldn't go on with the pain and stress. I didn't want to live. Oh, those moments, Mosilo, I don't know how you look back on that and still say that you would do it 1,000,000,000 times and that South Africa, you were worth it. I mean, those two paragraphs just give me absolute goosebumps.
You're making me teary now.
I was teary earlier when I was preparing for this. I was like, oh my goodness. In the Q&A.
But remember, imagine if Mandela and Susulus and the Mbegis, I mean, we have so many people that were killed, and we even have the PPE lady who was assassinated. Like I said, every revolution, this is the second revolution, and it's not of liberation.
Yes.
Imagine if they feared for their lives, and they did, but others were in exile, others were bombed and killed. But because we have this democracy, because of their blood and sweat and tears, So I think we've become a little bit too comfortable
Mm.
in Fenton and private school that you look the other way because you're like, my lifestyle is going to change.
Yes.
But yes, I have gone through hell and back. And but look, right now, as you can see, there was a state capture commission. We're waiting for the report. Kuben Moodley was on the way to Dubai. He was arrested for fraud money. So he was, remember I said he was one of the business development partners that gave the contracts to Regiments and Trillian. So he was arrested for theft, money laundering, and corruption. And it was my affidavit. So that day, I stayed at home and I had to hire bodyguards. And I reached out to the president. He didn't respond. So I've been at home. I have to now budget for private security. So if any of your forum guys there have security for me, I would appreciate it. Sorry, I'm just blowing my nose. And this is the beginning of many arrests that are coming. They arrested the middlemen, but I implicated about 50 front men and 50 back men. And one thing I can say is that I am under house arrest, self-imposed, because I fear that I will be assassinated. And if anyone in your audience has a security company, send one guy my way, even if the risk is real. And people are like, have you received death threats? And I said, do you think any self-respecting assassin will call me and say I'm coming?
Yes, I mean, they won't do that.
No. That's how you can't ask me that and say, oh, you haven't received any death threats, or you're okay.
That means you're not in any risk. Yes.
Yes.
Well, BMF members, you've heard Mosilo. We have even a wider network than the people who are on this webinar. If you or even know anybody who has got a security company or access to private security, please, 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 let's help Mosilo. Hashtagging, as she said, is all great, but she needs a real tangible assistance. Mosilo, I want the audience to be part of this discussion. So we've got Dila Machai on the Q&A saying, what a heavy story. Do you still walk around with bodyguards? I'm just going to read up 3 and then you can just take them at the same time. The other, Sipogazi Jojo, can you please repeat for us the moment you realized Trillian was involved in state capture? And then the last question I'm going to read is from Musebetsi Dladla. Does the fact that you struggle to work in corporate South Africa is the fact that you struggle to work in corporate South Africa perhaps an indication of how they support corruption? Should we question their ethics, and do we not need to highlight their patronage to the system? So I'll allow you to take the questions.
Okay. The bodyguards, they charged me 32,000 rand for 2 days.
We're going to say 32,000 rand a month.
No, for 2 days. And I went to Senegal. Plaf had a conference on African whistleblowers. You have the likes of Joseph Kabila's ex-banker, who exposed Kabila embezzling $50 billion. So he had to move into exile in Paris. Kabila burnt his house down. Bombed the car, and he had, I'm sorry, this is reality. He had his soldiers come and gang rape the wife and the daughters. So those are the kind of experiences that we have. I can't afford bodyguards. That's why I said, guys, you ask, what can we do? Right now, I go out once a week, and I have to ensure that I Uber and my phones are off, and I don't have any routine. Corporate SA, yes, all of them. If you look at Bain, McKinsey, KPMG, they're not complicit in NetBank. They're not complicit in corruption. They are part of corruption. So they, of course, you look at every single, the public sector is the largest spend of goods and services, and it buys those goods and services from the private sector. So it takes two to tango. So I believe that corporate will also say, oh goodness, she's a goody two shoes. She's going to now implicate us. Because with every single, you had some of the audit firms, you had Bain, you had a lot of private players in cahoots with the government to either bank them, give them advice, or to have some kind of new strategy so that you can hollow out SARS and put people that are bendable, pliable, who won't stand up for what's right. And sorry, what were the other questions? Or the moment I found out, it was March 2016. So I had been at Trillian for less than 3 weeks. That's when I saw that web of the article in Amabungani and Mail and Guardian about the Guptas running the country and choosing ministers, and essentially showing the three brothers and Mark Kaminsky and Desmond Roy, and I said, no, they're forgetting Mohammed Bobat, they're forgetting regiments in Trillian. So that's the day I realized that Salim Issa, and then I remember the Guptas, the media called him the third Gupta brother, and essentially that is exactly what he was. So that is the day I decided that I needed to leave. And what was the other question again?
Those were the I think those were the questions, Mosilo. I think colleagues, thank you very much. I've hosted a lot of webinars, Mosilo, and you can actually see people drop off as it gets later in the evening, understandably. And you'll be happy to know that we have not lost a single participant since you started speaking, and that's just how gripping your story is, and how chilling some of these accounts of what you went through have been. And I think, the rest of us really watched this play out in the media, newspapers, and the state capture inquiry, but to actually listen to a person who experienced it firsthand, and how it, the real destruction of a life. It's thanks to God and your faith, and we really thank God for pulling you through. But it was touch and go there for a moment. So I think for us, really, as the BMF, once again, it's been such an honor, really, to have you come and speak to us. And as I said when I opened, we pride ourselves on our values of respect, integrity, Ubuntu, creativity. We speak every day about a BMF type manager. And this is why I really, thanks to the guys at the office, because I would phone them and WhatsApp them every day and say, we have to get Mosilo onto one of our webinars, because this is such an important conversation for us as professionals, for us as Black professionals, and specifically for us as the BMF. So thank you very, very, very much, Mosilo. Thank you to the audience. Thank you for being engaging in the comments. Thank you for being engaging in the Q&A. Please join the BMF if you are not a member, either on our website. You can contact us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and you can look forward to many such crucial conversations. I really wish you a good evening further. And Mosilo, thank you once again. I really can't express just how grateful we are. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor. Part of my miracle with God was you write the book, and then I'm sending you to the four corners of the world to talk about it, and then you'll monetize on it. So I've been offered, so now I have a PR agent who manages my speaking arrangements. Some fee paying, others are not, but the message is always clear. But also my book is available on Take-A-Lot. You can go to Exclusive Books, Bargain Books, but also another miracle. I'm the first author that Penguin South Africa has done an audiobook. So those who don't want to read, or you can buy the book and download the audiobook. It's on Amazon.com. Just search Uncaptured, and you can download the audiobook. So that's very good news from my part.
Thanks, Mosilo. As you can see in that screenshot that they've got on the screen, I've got my handbag hanging there and I thought it's so ironic because of your lovely handbag. So we must go handbag shopping one
we have
day.
to. And in all of that, ladies and gentlemen, in all of that, I traveled to Paris and bought my Yves Saint Laurent clutch because I was running away from Lynn Brown. Yeah, so in all of that, remember. And then I paid for my own birthday dinner because I said, God, you're going to provide. And I called Paris Valentino and I said, please send me the matching shoes and bags. And they sent them through. So in all of that, there were sacrifices, but the bags still kept coming.
Yes, love it.
No, we have to have Chardonnay and bag shopping, absolutely.
We must. Thank you very much, Mosilo. Have a good evening. I hope your lights are coming back soon.
Yes, at
8 o'clock.
At 8:30. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it from us. Have a good evening. Thanks. Bye.